What if the words, "I just see you as a friend," aren't the end of the story, but the beginning of a new kind of power? What if the very pain that broke you is the same pressure that could shape a better, stronger version of you? And what if the friend zone isn't a dead end, but a door most men never learn how to open? You've probably been there, or know someone who has. The kind of guy who gives everything: his time, his energy, his loyalty, his attention, thinking it'll be enough, hoping that if he just shows her how deeply he cares, she'll eventually choose him. And then it happens. She looks him in the eye and says 5 words that punch harder than rejection itself. "I just see you as a friend." And in that moment, you nod. You fake a smile. You pretend to be okay. But deep down, something in you cracks. Because it wasn't just a girl saying no. It was the realization that you gave your best to someone who never wanted your heart, just your help. You were there for the late-night calls, for the emotional support, for the comfort after another guy left her in pieces. And somehow, even though you were the one picking her up, she was still chasing him. And it feels like betrayal wrapped in friendship. Like she used your kindness as a place to heal, only to walk away stronger, into someone else's arms. Most guys in that moment either stay, hoping she'll eventually see what's right in front of her, or they walk away bitter, like a ghost who gave too much. But what almost no one talks about is the third path, the one that doesn't come from chasing or from disappearing, but from shifting, from transforming the very dynamic that kept you stuck. Because the friend zone isn't a prison, it's a pattern. And if you learn how to interrupt that pattern, everything changes. She doesn't just see you differently, she feels you differently. And that shift is where attraction begins. It starts not with a speech or confession, but with silence, boundaries, and a new sense of self-respect that says, "I'm not here to prove myself to you anymore. I'm here to remember who I am." And once that shift happens, something powerful takes place. Not because she finally chose you, but because you finally chose yourself. And from that place, you stop needing her to see you and start becoming the kind of man she never forgets. There's a difference between being someone she can talk to and being someone she feels pulled toward. And most men confuse the two. You think that if you're always there for her, if you listen every time she vents, if you pick up the pieces every time another guy lets her down, that it's bringing you closer to her. That maybe, just maybe, if she sees how deeply you care, she'll realize you're the one. But that's not how this works. Because while you're trying to love her through support, she's experiencing your presence as something else entirely. Predictable, safe, familiar. And here's the truth most men don't want to admit. Safety might earn her gratitude, but it rarely earns her desire. Why? Because attraction isn't built in comfort. It's built in contrast, in mystery, in tension. She doesn't crave the man who's always available. She craves the man whose absence makes her question, whose silence makes her wonder. And when you're always showing up, when you answer every text, offer a shoulder for every breakdown, and listen to stories about the guys she actually wants, you become something she depends on, not something she desires. You become her emotional landing pad, her backup battery, her emotional therapist on call. And it feels noble, right? You're being the good guy, the patient one, the safe option. But here's what you don't see. Every time you're there without boundaries, she loses a little more respect for your time, for your space, for your masculine edge, because she knows exactly how you'll respond. You're dependable, but forgettable. Reliable, but invisible. There's no spark, no polarity, no pursuit. So what do? You pull back, not out of anger, not to punish, but to reclaim your value. You stop being the emotional safety net and start being a man with structure. The next time she starts ranting about another guy who hurt her, don't drop everything. Don't dive in to rescue. Respond with calm clarity. Something simple. Tough situation. Hope it works out. I've got to run. That sentence, that boundary, it does more than 100 supportive texts ever could. It sends a message. I'm not here to carry weight that isn't mine. My peace matters too. And at first, she might not even notice. She'll shrug it off. But then slowly, something shifts. She starts to feel the void. She starts wondering, why didn't he ask how I'm doing today? Why does it feel like he's further away? And that's the moment attraction begins. Not when you're constantly present, but when your absence has weight. When your emotional availability becomes something rare, it becomes something valuable. Because the truth is, emotional energy, just like time or money, gains value when it's protected, when it's not handed out freely, when it's given with discernment. And when she starts to sense that she no longer has unlimited access to your care, to your attention, to your emotional bandwidth, she feels something new. Loss, curiosity, longing. And that's when you stop being the one she leans on and start becoming the one she looks for. You didn't change. You just stopped being her emotional crutch. And that change, that's when she finally begins to see you, not as her comfort, but as the man who respects his own energy enough to step back. And ironically, that's exactly when she'll feel pulled closer than ever. There's something powerful about silence, but not the kind that comes from awkwardness or distance. I'm talking about intentional silence. The kind that makes her stop, lean back, and ask herself, where is he? Why hasn't he texted me? What's changed? And if you've been the guy who replies instantly, who always says yes, who's available every time she snaps her fingers, then let me tell you, she's never had to wonder. And when she never has to wonder, she never has to chase. And when she never has to chase, she never has to feel. Because attraction isn't born in constant contact. It lives in space, in subtle distance, in the absence that makes presence feel earned. Most men in the friend zone don't know how to use space. They fill it. They suffocate the moment. They send long texts, always initiate, always offer energy to a woman who hasn't truly earned it. And they wonder why it doesn't move her. But when you pull back, not out of anger, but out of awareness, everything begins to shift. So what does that look like? It starts small. Next time she texts, don't jump. Let her wait. Let her feel the pause. If she asks to hang out, be unavailable. Go to the gym. Take yourself out. Work on something that matters to you. The point isn't to fake being busy. It's to actually get busy living. Because here's the truth. A man who has purpose doesn't always have time. And when she feels that her place in your life is no longer guaranteed, that your time is now something she has to earn, she starts asking questions, not out loud, but in her head. And those questions, that's where the dynamic begins to flip. But it doesn't stop there. Don't just pull back. Redirect. Redirect your attention to other women. Not to hurt her, not to make her jealous in some high school way, but to show yourself and the world that you're no longer orbiting one woman who doesn't value you. Expand your circle. Build real connections. Talk to women. Engage naturally. Post a photo out with friends. Let her see a glimpse of your life that no longer revolves around her. Not to manipulate, but to reflect your growth. Because here's what happens in her mind when she sees that shift. She starts wondering, who is that? Why didn't he tell me he was out? Have he met someone else? And that storm inside her, that emotion that feels like confusion, anxiety, even a little jealousy, that's the emotion she's never felt with you before. Because you were always too easy to reach, too certain, too constant. But now, you've become something else. Something rare, something moving. And when she realizes she's no longer the only woman who catches your attention, she doesn't feel safe anymore. She feels something better. She feels a spark. That's the power of space, of scarcity, of not explaining yourself. Because when she has to guess where you are, who you're with, what you're thinking, that's when she starts paying attention again. Not because you begged for it, but because you became a man she can no longer take for granted. There's a look you've seen before. The look a woman gives a man when she realizes he's trying just a little too hard to impress her. It's subtle. She smiles politely, maybe laughs softly, but behind her eyes, something fades. And that's when it happens. You go from intriguing to invisible. And most guys never realize why. They think, I was being nice. I complimented her. I agreed with her. I showed I cared. But what they don't see is this. When your energy is constantly trying to win her over, she stops wondering if you're worth chasing. Because here's the truth. Women aren't drawn to the man who needs to be chosen. They're drawn to the man who already knows his worth, with or without her approval. And when you're always nodding, always smiling, always flooding her with compliments, what you're really saying is, please like me. You don't mean to, but that's the signal she picks up. You're not grounded, you're not discerning, you're performing. And that performance makes you easy to read. And easy to read is never attractive. Because attraction lives in contrast, in tension, in the subtle uncertainty of a man who speaks when he has something to say, not because he's afraid of silence. So let's get practical. Stop handing out praise like it's free candy. Stop calling her perfect, amazing, or unbelievable just to stand out. Because the truth is, she's heard it all before, from guys who meant well, but didn't stand out. So here's the shift. Say less, but make it count. When you do offer a compliment, let it be a little abstract, something that sparks her curiosity instead of feeding her ego. Try something like, that outfit reminds me of a painting I saw in a dream once. Strange, but vivid. Now she's not just being flattered, she's being pulled in, because she doesn't know what you mean. And that uncertainty makes her think, and thinking leads to feeling. And feeling is the root of desire. Let her work for the compliment. Let her wonder where she stands with you. Because when a woman has to earn your approval, she values it more. And more importantly, she respects you more. Don't be the guy who compliments her 5 times before she said a single interesting thing. Be the guy who listens, who observes, and who speaks with weight when the moment feels earned. You're not a mirror for her opinions. You're a man with his own voice. A voice that doesn't need to be loud, but must be real. Because when she realizes she can't predict your approval, that's when she starts craving it. And that shift, from you chasing her validation to her seeking yours, isn't about ego. It's about energy. and energy doesn't lie. Women can feel the difference between a man who knows who he is and one who's still hoping she'll define him. So if you're tired of being overlooked, if you're done performing, stop asking for her attention. Start commanding it. Through presence, through restraint, through the quiet strength of a man who knows she's not the prize, you both are. There's a kind of power most men never tap into, not because they don't have it, but because they've been taught to ignore it. It's the kind of power that doesn't come from force, words, or proving a point. It comes from silence, from calm detachment, from doing nothing and letting that nothing speak louder than any reaction ever could. You see, most guys are wired to believe that the more you show up, the more she'll feel. That if you call more, text more, explain yourself, stay visible, she'll eventually notice. But what they miss is this: emotion doesn't always rise from presence. Sometimes it rises from absence. Because when you've always been available, always the guy who replies right away, always showing up like clockwork, she stops thinking about you. You've become a background sound, predictable, harmless, safe. But when that presence disappears without drama, without warning, without explanation, it creates a vacuum, a void, a question. And questions stir emotion. Why hasn't he texted? Why didn't he say goodnight? Is he mad? Did I lose him? And it's in that space, not in your effort, that the power shifts. Because here's what most men don't realize: not reacting is still a response. It's a message. And often, it's the most powerful one you'll ever send. When you stop calling, when you stop checking in, when you don't show up to rescue her with comfort or conversation, she notices. Maybe not immediately, maybe not with words, but deep down, something in her stirs. That silence gets under her skin, and not because you're punishing her, but because, for the first time, you're not pursuing her, you're choosing yourself. And that calm withdrawal, it's not coldness, it's clarity. It's the shift from being taken for granted to becoming someone she wonders about again. This isn't about being cruel or playing games. It's about reclaiming your energy, protecting your presence. Because when everything is easy to access, it loses its value. Scarcity is what creates worth. That's why a candle in a dark room draws attention, but in daylight, it's barely noticed. So when you pull back, not in anger, but in quiet self-respect, you stop being a source of comfort and start becoming a source of curiosity. And that curiosity, that's what reawakens attraction. Because a woman can only truly desire what she can't fully predict. And if she knows exactly when and how you'll show up, there's no tension, no fire. But when you step back, when your silence becomes a presence in itself, you create a contrast she hasn't felt in a while. You stop being the guy who needs her, and you become the man she can't quite figure out. A stoic man doesn't flinch. He doesn't chase chaos. He doesn't explain his every move. He moves with purpose, and he lets silence carry his message. The most powerful words you'll ever say are the ones you don't. Because when your absence has weight, and love without weight, it floats, it drifts, it disappears the moment tension enters the room. Most men trapped in the friend zone aren't staying because they're brave. They're staying because they're scared. Scared that walking away means closing the door forever. That if they stop being the emotional safety net, the shoulder to cry on, the quiet backup plan. She'll forget they ever existed. But here's the truth no one tells you. Being needed isn't the same as being wanted. Just because she weans on you doesn't mean she sees you. And need without desire is obligation, not connection. So how do you break the cycle? You walk away, not to punish her, not to play games, but because you finally respect yourself enough to stop clinging to crumbs. You stop checking in first. You stop showing up when she needs comfort but offers no commitment. You stop being her emotional insurance plan, and you start being a man with a mission, a man with direction, the man who invests his energy where it's reciprocated. Because when you pull your energy back and focus on your life, not as a strategy, but as a necessity, something powerful happens. If she truly values you, she'll feel your absence. She'll realize she lost something rare. And if she doesn't come back, that's not your loss. It's your freedom. You see, women don't forget men who walk away with purpose. They forget the ones who stayed too long, hoping to be picked. A man who's willing to leave with his head high, with calm in his chest and clarity in his steps. That man doesn't beg to be chosen. He becomes the one she regrets letting go. Because self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't explain itself. It simply exits when the space is no longer worthy of its presence. And that exit? That's not weakness. That's strength in motion. That's the beginning of a man reclaiming his time, his heart, and his identity. So if you've been staying, ask yourself, is this connection growing, or is it just familiar? If you've been waiting, ask yourself, is she meeting me where I am, or am I constantly lowering my standard just to keep her around? And if the answers hurt, don't panic. Just pause, breathe, then step back, not with bitterness, but with peace. Because no woman wants to lose a man who had the courage to walk away when he wasn't truly seen. And no man should ever stay in a space where his value has to be proven daily. You're not here to convince, you're here to become. Let her see what that looks like, from a distance. Here's the part most men miss when they hear the words, "I just see you as a friend." They think it means they weren't good enough, but that's not the truth. The friend zone isn't punishment for being a bad guy. It's a side effect of being forgettable. You were safe, you were kind, you were consistent, but you didn't stand out. You didn't create contrast. You didn't radiate the kind of presence that makes her stop and wonder, who is this man becoming? And that's where everything changes. Because here's the shift. When you stop trying to win her attention and start becoming a man who doesn't need it, something powerful begins to happen. You upgrade, not to prove anything, but to rediscover everything. You upgrade your appearance, not because of her, but because how you show up in the mirror changes how you show up in the world. You stop dressing like someone hiding in the background and start carrying yourself like someone who knows where he's going. You upgrade your time. You stop wasting hours in conversations that lead nowhere and start pouring that energy into something that actually grows you. The gym, a new skill, a side project, reading, stillness, whatever makes you sharper. You upgrade your environment. You stop hanging around people who drain you, who reinforce your stuck mindset, and start surrounding yourself with those who challenge you to rise. Men who are building, women who bring warmth and inspiration, spaces that reflect where you're headed, not where you've been. And most importantly, you upgrade your mindset. Because when your thoughts shift, your life follows. You stop orbiting her world and start building your own. And that shift, that inner glow that comes from a man who no longer lives in reaction, but in intention, that's what she sees. Maybe it's a post she stumbles across. Maybe it's the way you walk into a room with your shoulders just a little more pulled back. Maybe it's the calm in your voice when you speak, or the way you no longer hang on her every word. And in that moment, she'll pause, just for a second, and think, did I misjudge him? That question, right there, is the beginning of attraction. Because it's no longer about who you were when she placed you on the shelf. It's about who you've become now that you're no longer waiting. You're not acting out of bitterness. You're not pretending to be over her. You're just growing. Quietly, consistently, authentically. And that growth creates a ripple, a presence, a shift in the air. She doesn't know what's changed, but she feels it. And that feeling? That's regret. Not the kind that makes her fall to her knees, but the kind that makes her pay attention. Because now, you're not the guy she friend-zoned. You're the man she might have lost. And you didn't get there by chasing her. You got there by chasing the man you knew you could be. So let her see it, not by proving it, but by living it. Because the moment you become the man she underestimated, she won't just notice. You'll feel her energy shift, her tone change, her curiosity grow. And even if nothing happens between you again, you'll walk away with something far greater than her approval. You'll walk away with self-respect, with a deeper sense of your value, and with a life that no longer needs to be validated by someone else's attention. Because the real upgrade isn't what she sees, it's what you finally believe. Let's get one thing straight. The friend zone isn't proof that you're not good enough. It's proof that you were too predictable. Because women don't chase certainty. They don't stay up thinking about the guy they can read like a manual. They're drawn to something deeper, something more alive. Mystery, selective presence. A quiet power that doesn't try to impress but can't be ignored. And that's the shift most men never make. They think if they just show how safe, how loyal, how available they are, she'll eventually choose them. But what really happens is she feels no spark, no tension, no reason to lean in. So how do you flip it? You stop performing. You stop offering your energy for free. You stop chasing comfort and start creating contrast. Because what makes you unforgettable isn't the words you say. It's the space you create. That pause between messages. That decision not to show up. That silent, grounded energy that says, I'm not here to be convenient. I'm here to be clear. And in that space, she begins to feel what she never felt before. Absence. Not neglect, but scarcity. And scarcity creates desire. When you stop flooding her with your attention, she starts reaching for it. When you stop trying to be chosen, you become the one she wants to choose. But here's the catch. You can't fake this. You don't create this shift by pretending. You create it by becoming, by doing the inner work, by rebuilding your focus, your direction, your circle, your purpose. You don't need her to chase you. You just need her to feel that you've stopped chasing her. And once she does, everything changes. So if you've made it this far, and something in you is waking up, good. That's the first step. Now it's time to take the next one. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the biggest lesson this journey has taught you? And if you're ready to lead yourself, instead of waiting to be chosen, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep showing up. Not for her, but for you. Because when you master your mind, your mission, and your presence, you don't need to win her over. You become the man she never saw coming, and the one she can't forget.